make this fresh, and it has the nicest fruity, earthy smell. This is already a day old, but when it's totally fresh, it's like, it's a gift of, it's incredibly good. So you can eat a piece. This is just plain soybean with a little bit of rice. You have to figure out what you want to grow the thing on. Okay. So this is soybeans tempeh with a little bit of millet in it. Paul made some tempeh. Which one do you want to pass around?
All of them.
This is on red lentils.
What are the jars for? Keep the.
It's for the incubator to keep it separated.
I stacked a bunch of different trays on top of each other, so I just used something I could kind of sterilize, so I could stack another tray on top of another one, and I used the cooler as an incubator.
Yeah, I talk about all of that. And here's some other. This is on grain, on rice.
This is soy, you said?
And this is red lentils.
Split peas.
Oh,
This one's split peas.
Split peas.
That one's red
Sorry.
lentils.
So you have to figure out what you want to grow it on.
White rice?
White rice.
Soybean is special because soybean is a nitrogen fixer, very easy to grow. It's grown at large scale. It's the most grown.
Yeah, if you can find a knife to cut a
crop.
piece, sure.
Unfortunately, people fidgeted with it and did GMO variations of it. But you can get organic soybeans at bulk, and you have a bag of it, and you can feed yourself from it. Now this is, you can also try pieces of that, right?
Oh yeah, no problem.
You can taste it. This is now, of course, the basic ingredient you want to cook with it. Now how do you cook with tempeh? Simple. Whenever you have a mushroom, you replace it with tempeh. That's what I usually say, okay? But you do whatever you want with it. You can cut it in wads, put it in the toaster, bake it a little bit, and then put it in a sandwich. Any kind of thing. Now the main thing about food is if you just eat what the society tells you you should eat, you're not getting anywhere. You need to try to learn how to eat new foods. So tempeh is something that makes sense in the sense that in Indonesia there is 100 million people that it's their staple to eat tempeh. It's an extremely efficient way to use food. What most of the time happens is we grow a lot of soy and feed it to animals. We feed it to the chicken. We feed it and do all kinds of things with it. Instead, you should eat it directly. That would cut down, of course, the number of resources used to grow the food. If we all would eat tempeh directly instead of feeding the soy to animals and then eat the meat, the world would be a totally different place. We'd use much less water and all of those things, right? So what's in the way is culture. So what happens is these foods that make a lot of sense, they are the peasant foods, they are the poor man's foods. For instance, tempeh is sometimes called poor man's meat. And it has the stigma of poverty, and then what happens is when we get richer, we typically eat what we eat on Sunday. We eat the fancier foods because we want to tell ourselves we are rich, and we often shift away from those foods that are actually good for us and that make a lot of sense. So the Sunday shift or the Shabbat shift, or if you go to India, the temple food is always the finer food. And when people get richer, they shift away from the peasant foods to those other foods. So you have to understand those mechanisms. And it's very important to understand that we're not eating food, we always eat culture. Make that point. We eat culture. We eat what we think tastes good. That's the most. If you don't understand that, then you constantly run after what everybody else eats, and you're not really exploring new things. So now I'll give you something totally shocking. This is the same soybean, but instead of a fungus, what I grow on it is a bacteria. It's called natto. How many people know natto? It's a slimy food, and it's very slimy, and it's very interesting food. I'll talk about it. I'll show you how to do that one too. So this is an example. I've tried this in many cultures. I travel around the world sometimes and teach workshops on fermentation and see how they react. So this is eaten by, you can take a spoonful. You have to spoon? Like,
What does it smell like? Like what?
It almost like hurts.
yes, it has. If you grow natto and you grow a big batch of it, and you open it up, you look in it, your eyes hurt, and it's the ammonia that gets in your eyes and it hurts you. It's the same thing like when you go into a cow shed that is really packed with cows. The same ammonia is there. It's in your eyes. You feel it in the eyes. But the interesting thing is the way I work with food. Did I do anything?
No, I just slipped off.
Oh,
Save it, save it. Okay. Okay.
Did I do that?
This is.
slipped off the glass.
Okay.
Like
Yeah. So this is an example of a food that is eaten in some cultures. It's eaten in China. They grew these thousands of years ago. And it made it to Japan. We know it as natto, which is the Japanese word. But it originally goes back to China. Sometimes you dehydrate these, put a little bit of salt, then you can store them and it becomes a spice.
It tastes better than what it smells like.
Yeah. Well, so it is interesting because in Japan there's certain areas where half of the people eat this for breakfast every day. And what they do is they take a little bit of rice and a little bit of natto, and they put a raw egg on top, and they beat it and it foams, and a little bit of onions, and it's the breakfast. So from an outside thing, it always looks like these guys are totally crazy. So what I do then is I take a bean of it and I eat a little bit. Oh, they eat this in Japan every day. It tastes really bad, but why do they eat this? And you do it a couple of times during the week, and you get used to the food, and eventually you learn how to eat these foods, and they're extremely healthy. Natto right now is a big health craze, in the sense that you can buy it as a pharmaceutical. What they do is they grow this natto, and they extract that slimy component. It's called natto kinase, and that supposedly cleans your arteries. I don't care, but anyway, there's always some story. And so I'm serious. This is an industry. Now, the way I do it is I cook, I eat with it, and I add a little bit. I make some kind of dish, and I add a little bit on the side. And then after a while, you get used to it, and you crave it. But the societal pressure is so strong. When I go around and show it to people, and everybody doesn't like it, then I don't like it anymore. So, but I have to be by myself in privacy and teach myself again, and then I really like it. We crave it. It's interesting. So you have to really understand the societal pressures when it comes to food. Yes?
How did you make the bacteria?
I show you all of that. It's totally trivial. To grow these things is like as easy as making bread. You're just not familiar with it. So that's why it's hard, okay? But it's fairly easy. So I get a sack of soybeans, of organic soybeans, and then I play with it. Now the interesting thing is, the tempeh that I passed around first was the same soybean. The natto is the same soybean, just a different culture. There is another culture. There's miso. You can make miso from it. It's essentially also soybean and a little bit of rice. So the variety you can do with fermentation is amazing. There's a fourth one. It's anchong. Toast tastes different. It's an orange blooming mold. The tempeh, when it blooms, where's my tempeh? It gets black. Oh, that's the natto. Thank you. I passed it around. This was that white tub.
It's right there, behind the pressure cooker. Right there.
Yeah, so this one turns gray and eventually will turn black. It's that way. Ancham is another one. It's also a fungus. Turns orange. It's only eaten in certain areas in Indonesia. So when these fancy cooks, 5-star, 10 stars, I don't care, cooks talk about cooking, don't be impressed by that. They don't do anything really interesting except make the food look good. The taste, the sophisticated tastes, always go back to fermentation. Those, like the bacteria, they are the sous chefs that make the interesting tastes. The fact that you can take a soybean and make this out of it, which tastes totally different from natto, which tastes different from ancham, different from miso, that's really the miracle. And it's just manipulation of growing the cultures at a certain temperature. Okay, so what do? You start out, unfortunately I don't have a projector, you have your soybeans. He has a bunch of substrates here.
In the pressure cooker.
In the pressure cooker. So you have to figure out what to grow it on. The most common one would be soybeans. And they look almost like this. This is chickpeas or something, split peas.
Mm-hmm.
So you can start with split peas, and he had split pea tempeh. Then you don't have to do the shell. Why do you have to do the shelling? They have skins on there, these seeds, to protect them from fungi. But I want a fungi to grow on there, so I have to get rid of the skin to help the fungi to get in there. Okay? So what you typically do is you take your whole soybeans and you split them. And you guys can come over here, I'll show you. So this is usually I have a hopper here.